Okay, welcome to Chapter 17, Transformation of the West. What we're trying to do with this chapter is we're trying to talk about how does the West, meaning Western Europe, essentially, change during this time period of 1450 to 1750. In Chapter 16, we looked at the exploration that the West engages in. In this chapter, we're going to look at what goes on, changes within the West. Well, one of the first big changes is the Italian Renaissance. Now, your question was give at least three of the accepted ideas on why the Renaissance began first in northern Italy. Okay, and so the question here is why Italy? Well, it's three reasons. First off, these are wealthy city-states. City-states like Venice, Florence, Genoa, um, Rome have become wealthy places through trade. These guys have monopolized trade with the Ottoman world, and any goods that are coming from the Middle East to Northern Europe, to the north of Italy, are coming through these places. They're very wealthy. They're very urban, commercial, meaning they're not stuck in the old feudal Middle Ages ideas of where everything's self-sufficient, everything takes place right on the the manner that they're looking more outwardly, more new ideas in the world. Also, they're competitive. Venice wants to prove that it's better than Genoa, which wants to prove it's better than Florence, which wants to prove it's better than Rome. So they try to compete with each other, and that means they compete in areas of art and writing and poetry and science. Okay? What happens when the Northern Renaissance moves northward? Sorry, northward. And the question was, how did Northern humanists differ from Italian humanists? And the main thing is, Northern humanists were more religious than Italian humanists. Remember, the philosophy of humanism, just what the first five letters of the word say, it's all based around humans. What is the potential of human beings? What is our potential to do good? What is our potential to achieve? What can we as humans do? It's not just about religion. Now, guys like Erasmus, he's a northern humanist, and he tries to take this idea of celebrating human potential and put it in a religious context. That's why you see the paintings like this one, which show peasants dancing. We did not see that kind of stuff earlier. In the Middle Ages, you did not see paintings of peasants. Even in Italy, you don't see much painting of normal people, but you do here. One of the most famous humanists is a guy by the name of, that's right, William Shakespeare from England, one of the northern humanists' most famous people. Why do we put him in as a humanist? Well, remember, this is a guy who studies what it is like for life is like for people. His plays are about human motives, about human potential, human desires, anger, lying, frustration. It's not about it's not so much about the gods intervening in our lives or about religion in our lives. It's about what do humans do that causes things to happen. What kind of changes in technology are really impacting people? And one of them is the advancement of Gutenberg's printing press. Now, with Gutenberg's printing press, we have books are more widely distributed. We have greater literacy. More people can read because they can get their hands on books. And there's a quicker and more widely uh, spread of ideas. The ideas are spread more widely, and the ideas travel quicker. We get things like Martin Luther, who we're going to look at here in just another slide or so. His ideas on religion are put out, and within months, I know that doesn't sound like very long now, but within months, people can be reading one of his pamphlets, short books about religious conflict all across Germany, all because of this printing press. Now, one of the first things, and the only thing that really made Gutenberg any money, because he died poor, was the Gutenberg Bible. And this is a page from the Gutenberg Bible where he took and had the German, the Bible printed, and so it was it was a moneymaker and it was most popular. Okay, can you name at least two things? I've got five here. The ways in which Luther's views differed from the Catholic Church's views. That's the first question. One of the things is he opposed indulgences. Now, what were indulgences? This is a picture of indulgences. Indulgence, you got to understand something. The Roman Catholic Church at this point in history preached something called um, purgatory. Now, purgatory was the idea that most of us are not good enough to go to heaven, nor are we bad enough that we go straight to hell when we die. What we do is we've done some bad things and we need to work those off in the afterlife. And so we go to purgatory. Purgatory is where we'll stay for, if you've been really bad, you stay longer. If you haven't been very bad, it's a shorter stay in purgatory where you suffer for your sins. And imagine the pitch of this. People would buy, what they would do is they would come and they would buy um, an indulgence. This is a extra salvation, extra grace, which was accumulated by saints and Jesus, and you would buy some of that, and that would be put towards your dead relatives' sins, and it would get them out of purgatory and to heaven quicker. The sales expression went, when the coin in the coffer rings, the soul to heaven springs from purgatory. Now imagine the appeal you can make. If people believe you, you can say, listen, your dead mother could be in heaven right now if you'll just spend the money to get her out of purgatory and get her to heaven. Think of the good you can do for your mother. She's suffering right now, but you can do this for her. And it had appeal. Luther also believed that only faith could achieve salvation. In other words, the only thing that got you to heaven was believing in God. Nothing else got you to heaven. Good works didn't get you to heaven. Luther also believed priests can marry. In fact, Luther got married himself to a former nun. He was a former monk. He left the faith and married a former nun. He did not believe in the supremacy of the Pope. That's this guy right here at this point. The Pope was supreme. He did not believe the Pope was infallible. Catholics at this point believe the Pope was infallible. What does infallible mean? It means you're like my wife. You can make no mistakes. Okay? Also, Luther believed the Bible ought to be translated into the vernacular. Vernacular, you guys will remember from last year, means to write in the native language of the people. So that meant Englishmen could read the Bible in English, Frenchmen could read the Bible in French, Germans could read the Bible in German, and so on. By the way, if you get a chance, don't you think he looks a little like Martin Luther looks a little bit like Mr. Keller? Go tell him, go call him Martin if you get a chance. It'll drive him crazy. Second question on this slide. Why did Luther pick up political support in Northern Europe? Well, you got to look at this map. This is Germany at the time Luther lived. You've got Germany is divided up into a lot of principalities. A principality is an area ruled by a prince. So you got Bohemia, Bavaria, Wittenberg, Brunswick, Mecklenburg. You got all these places, and each of them are ruled by their own prince. The popes feel they can tell these princes what to do and can demand taxes from them, what we call tithe, T-I-T-H-E. Now, if you guys remember, tithe was a church tax. Now, why did the church get away with this? Well, the church said, if you don't pay your taxes, we'll shut down all your churches. So imagine you're the prince of Bohemia here, and you've got all your churches closed down. All your people believe they're going to go to hell. Why? They believe they're going to go to hell because they think that this means that they can't have communion, they can't ask forgiveness for their sins, so if they die, they're destined for hell. So it puts a lot of pressure on princes to keep their churches open. But with the arrival of Martin Luther, we have a Lutheran church, and now we don't have to listen to the Pope or pay his taxes. All right, had a video, but school won't let me show anything YouTube. Might try to convert it and bring it in later. What about the end of Christian unity? Describe some of the results of the loss of Christian unity. First one is, at least in the West, Christianity was permanently divided. It had been divided before between Orthodox and Roman Catholic, but now we see a division unlike anything we've seen before. It will never be reunited in Western Europe. You will always have Protestants and Catholics, and there'll be a lot of division. Um, that's when we end up with places like Sweden and Denmark who end up going Protestant, Germany who goes mostly Protestant, France who will go Catholic, Spain who will go Catholic, England who goes Protestant. Parts of Austria, at least this Austria, will go either Catholic more to the south, Protestant more to the north. Poland will go Catholic, and of course, the Italian states will go Catholic. All right. Then there's the idea of pluralism. The one good thing that comes out of all this fighting, and this map shows the 30 Years' War, and we're going to talk about the 30 Years' War. I'm going to share a reading with you guys over the next couple of days. The 30 Years' War starts off as a Protestant Catholic war and turns into a political war. It turns into France versus the Holy Roman Emperor versus German princes, and it gets complicated. But I've got a really good reading I'll share with you on that. But there was a small idea of pluralism. If you look at the word pluralism, Plural means plural, means many. It means an acceptance of, not a belief in, but an acceptance of many different religions. So you end up with pluralism, this idea that we accept. We may disagree with other groups, but we accept their that they have a right to exist. And last, some kings benefited from the loss of papal power. In other words, loss of power of the Pope. Particularly, this will be true in Germany. Okay, so we've been looking at what's going on in the religious world. What's going on in the economic world? Well, we have something we call the commercial revolution. Commercial revolution is this idea of proto-industrialization. I'll go back to the previous slide, don't worry. Proto-industrialization was this idea that within the home or in very, very small settings, we get women who are and men who are doing this weaving and cloth working and these kind of things and then sell them to merchants who then take them to their shops. That's what you've got in this picture right here, into their shops where they will sell. Now, this is a good thing because it means while it does lead to inflation, that's true, it's a good thing in that it means more jobs for ordinary people, a little greater income because they can supplement their farming income or their peasant income with other jobs and more consumer products. So the merchants benefit, the workers benefit some, and there's more availability, more stuff for people to have. So in general, despite some negatives, one of the things that comes along, though, with this commercial revolution is what we call wage labor. That's where people work for a salary. Now, in the old days, sorry, it shouldn't have jumped to that slide first. In the old days, you had people worked on manors, estates, and even when times were bad, they could still grow a little bit of food for themselves. Now, if I'm a manufacturing worker, such as up here in number one, or I'm a paid agricultural laborer, if I get fired tomorrow, what happens to me? That's right. I have nothing. I have nothing. And so this is a scary time for people, and that's going to lead to my second question here. Also, this is a time when many people start to blame the poor for their moral failings. In other words, you start to say, oh, those people are poor because there's something wrong with them. They're not hard enough workers, they're sinners, there are problems with them. People don't yet understand the economic process very well. So they think if you're Donald Trump and you're rich, it's because you're a better person than somebody who doesn't have as much money as, say, Donald Trump. How do workers react to this insecurity of wage labor? You get things like social protests, popular uprisings, and attacks upon witches, where people blame witches for their problems. You get some of these kind of attacks, like here it's supposed to be the Lord versus the peasants. See the pitchforks, and you'll see people with swords who are representing the Lord. So it's these versus the two groups fighting each other, and that did go on. There were protests and there were struggles and fights. Okay, that takes us through what we're doing today. Thank you guys for listening. We'll put up the next lecture tomorrow. We'll put up part 2 tomorrow.